2507. Earth was dominated by giant corporations. Angelic, a marginal company, initiated a project codenamed Transcendence. It promised infinite life and an escape from the now-dying Earth. Once the project was completed, Angelic quickly became a global force reckoned with. Not for long, though. They lost the control over their neo-humans. Now called the Fallen Angels, neo-humans rebelled and won a spectacular victory. Mysteriously, they did not deliver the final blow and retreated. Iset, the leader of the Angels, dedicated herself to engineering new angels. It is still an enigma why she chose to spare the corporations. After the war, the Transcendence Project had been banned. Humanity's progress did not stop, of course. The show must go on after all. In 2702, deep space operations of the corporations had stalled due to a newly risen danger: the infested. They have discovered that this organism has destroyed many alien civilizations. When corporations began colonizing exoplanets, millions of desperate people saw this as an opportunity and settled in. Alas, the infestation hit these brave frontiers hard. You were a top-tier military pilot before the infestation decimated your home station. Now you are scavenging with your friends. One day, your ship captured a peculiar signal. Analysis revealed an astonished discovery. It was a neo-human beacon. You hit big this time.
Wow. Love it.
Super cool.
Yeah. So we have a really cool AMA today. We have Angelic in the house doing a AMA with Floppy and I. Floppy, you want to start it off?
Yeah. Let's just kick it off with just like a little intro. Can you sort of introduce yourself and tell us more about the team behind Angelic?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, thank you guys for having us. It's a great pleasure. Speaking of, let me introduce myself as a first thing. Then we can quickly talk about the team. So basically, I'm one of the first, game-focused entrepreneurs in Turkey. One of the first AAA-ish, game development companies was one of the first of them established by me in 2003, 4, something like that. We back then it was almost impossible to make that kind of production. We simply did not have enough talents in Turkey, and we are quite disconnected from the rest of the world. Technologies were super expensive, etc. So the initial attempts was not super successful, to be honest. But then I shifted out of. My company survived. We were able to adapt ourselves to other. Let's say other opportunities. For example, we were one of the first adopters of a free-to-play business model. We were really good at pivoting from one place to another, one opportunity to another. But again, after approximately 10 years, we released a lot of successful titles. Some of them were RPGs, some of them were strategy games, some of them were free-to-play games. But then eventually our journey ended, and I joined Crytek as the director of game operations. I actually managed most of their publishing operations, especially about Warface, one of their very successful, free-to-play shooter game, AAA shooter game, actually. Then I actually started Metaverse in 2016. So we are quite old. It was way before the current Metaverse hype. Maybe we were a bit early, right? Because when we first, the initial idea was utilizing blockchain and merging it with other, top hype, technologies like, for example, AR, VR, but most importantly with traditional gaming space, because our biggest dream was integrating our community further with our games, right? Because of course back then there were no such stuff as NFTs, DAO mechanisms or whatever. But we were primarily focused on utilizing blockchain to give some kind of ownership to the community, so they could have some own some stuff from our games for real. And most important, they could be a part of this journey and shape even some development related decisions. So it was, let's say, the first attempt, but in 2016 there was a military coup attempt in Turkey, which literally devastated everything we were trying to do. So we had to stop. I mean, and then I joined universities. I started to give some lectures. I wanted to utilize my time to at least help grow the talent pool in Turkey. And in 2020, right after the COVID outbreak, I literally restarted. But between these two attempts, the biggest important detail is I also started to learn trading. I especially started to focus on cryptocurrencies. I learned technical analysis. In fact, I had some kind of community behind me. They are following me mostly because of my technical analysis. I got really good at that, and I made some money. I used that money to kickstart the company again. But my pocket money was, considered as a pre-seed, investment or something like that. But after the COVID, I was able to tap my friends, international friends. So that awesome team actually, we started to get together around 2020 April. But actually, we grow so fast. So my pocket money quickly vanished, and we were not able to, of course, pay salaries. We had no investors, no publishers back then. So for almost 2 years, and more than 50 people pushed Angelic with their passion, right? Not because of their salary or something like that. Maybe that's the most important detail, when it comes to our history and when it comes to our team, because it shows our pure dedication. And to maybe further emphasize this, I also wanted to underline that if you look at our tokenomics, you're gonna see that we put our tokens 2 years long cliff plus 3 years vesting. So in total 5 years. That's the longest cliff and vesting period you can see in that industry, because we simply don't care. We are here for the long term. Angelic is our passion. I mean, we pushed it definitely with our dedication, passion, and we are here for our children, right? That's simple as that. I mean, we are definitely not here for a quick money grab operation. We didn't start this after the metaverse hype or something. We are not making Angelic because we are trying to utilize that hype, try to make some game-ish stuff in order to utilize this quick and then sell our tokens and go away. Definitely that's not the plan here. So when it comes to, I mean, if you are talking about the team, yes, that's very important. And basically, most of the team members, they are all, coming from traditional, especially AAA gaming space. We have worked on really big titles such as Destiny, Diablo, League of Legends, Warface, as I said. Also, a lot of other big titles, actually. Halo series, for example. So we are quite good at traditional AAA game development scene. And also some of our guys, they are coming from Hollywood, actually. They have worked on AAA, blockbuster movies such as Venom, for example, Thor, Love and Thunder, etc. So it's a very, 360 strong team. We also enhanced our blockchain team by onboarding really cool people from that space. So I mean, basically, we are quite, confident that we can deliver a solid, real, AAA, traditional, and sophisticated, deep gameplay experience to our players. And also, we can also utilize, let's say, the beauty of blockchain technology and opportunities here. So basically, that's our story, and that's the team.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story, though. I love how
Yeah.
I love how because you're empowering all those people by teaching them, and then in the end, everyone's committed, and to have such a long-term vision, that's like shows dedication. Because Angelic, it's I mean, everyone saw how beautiful that introduction video was. Like, you guys have put in like so much work, and Angelic is a metaverse with a narrative RPG, turn-based strategic combat. You talked about the projects you guys have worked on. Is there any previous projects that served as like, motivation for Angelic? And like, when you were a kid growing up, like what was like maybe some of the first games like you like fell in love with and got you into gaming?
Well, if you have 5 hours or something like that, I can summarize it. But there are definitely a lot of titles, a lot of books, movies, a lot of stuff we took some inspirations from actually. But basically, if we talk about primarily about games that inspired us, I can name very strong titles such as Mass Effect series, even StarCraft, right? And basically, a lot of our science fiction games, they were quite important. Even games like Witcher series, right? I mean, Witcher. If you look at Angelic, you would say there are no resemblance between Angelic and games like medieval fantasy games like Witcher. But actually, since it's a narrative RPG, we of course took a lot of inspirations from super successful RPG games like Witcher, etc. Also, of course, we can name turn-based strategy games like XCOM series, and also Baldur's Gate 3, Divinity Original Sin series. They are all party-based tactical RPG games, turn-based tactical RPG games. But to be honest, Angelic is quite unique because uh, as a super short summary, I can say Angelic is 85% Mass Effect, 10, or 15% XCOM or Baldur's Gate 3 or similar games, But actually, our combat is quite different. And we have at the moment we have a playable early stage playable demo that offers 3 hours long gameplay. It has 7 different missions. It's a very long, actually, and kind of polished and super optimized build actually. But even if you play that build, you wouldn't understand the full design scope or design decisions of us because we only could have we were able to implement. We were not able to implement all the features because of the circumstances. As I said, we didn't have enough financial resources, etc. So right now we are revamping the combat, for example, and the next iteration would clearly show what kind of combat in our minds actually. So basically, our turn-based combat is almost like a real-time party-based RPG combat, but actually it has to the pacing must be carefully controlled because you would be basically commanding a set of heroes, right? I mean, like maybe you would be commanding 10 different characters, and in real-time combat you couldn't do that. I mean, nobody could do that, right? Nobody can be that fast. And if you played party-based RPG games like Mass Effect, for example, you would realize that you must focus on your main character, and all the other super cool heroes, all of a sudden they become super useless sidekicks because we cannot control them. AI controls them during the battles, and they just randomly shoot some guys, which kind of kills the immersion because they're supposed to be super cool heroes, right? But all of a sudden they are not really useful during the combats. So in order to avoid this, and again in that, essentially you'd be investing your money, you would be investing your time for your heroes. So Angel is basically a hero-based game. That's very important. Those characters are super important. We are spending a lot of time to make them look cool, to make them functionality-wise unique, super precious, important. So if you want to end up very deep, sophisticated tactical combat without sacrificing the importance of those characters, you either go to turn-based mode or you sacrifice their significance and importance. You go full action, real time like design decision. We wouldn't want to go that way. So right now we are making a very unique combat actually, and I'm sure when you see the new combat, you would really love it. But essentially, apart from the combat, while you are playing the game, you would be essentially playing a third person, not turn based, third person RPG. So you would be seeing your main character in front of you, and soon we will be releasing a lot of trailers and gameplay materials anyways, and also we will be releasing that early stage playable demo to our NFT holders, to our to some people, so they will also realize that what kind of gameplay we are talking about. But basically it's mostly third person RPG experience, and only when a combat triggers, and because you need to command a lot of characters at the same time, we switch to slightly turn-based mode. That's, in a nutshell, that's the game.
You mentioned a little bit in the beginning there, some of your inspirations, like you mentioned some books. I'm just curious, was like Snowpiercer one of those? Because isn't that like the first mention of metaverse? Isn't that book like kind of coined the term metaverse?
Yeah, definitely. That's very important. Apart from that, actually, I'm mostly took inspirations from real science books, right? I'm talking about, for example, theoretical physics. I'm talking about books like Michio Kaku and his awesome books. Definitely, I'm talking about Stephen Hawking, for example. These guys are really good at when it comes to summarizing the beauty of science with very basic terms. So you don't need to be a scientist or something like that, or physicist or nuclear physicist in order to understand what those guys are talking about.
Right.
And they also kind of triggered my mind. I realized that actually science is something much more, I mean, fantastic than our fantastic stories. So actually, all it takes for you to understand the basics of that amazing stuff and implement it without making them boring. So that's why, for example, we call Angelic as mostly a science fiction game, not a science fantasy game, right? Because as a super quick example, Star Wars is a pure science fantasy, right? I mean, they don't care about scientific realities, which is perfect. Okay, I'm not against it. Star Trek, for example, on the other hand, is much more closer to the science fiction because they really care about scientific realities, limitations, etc. And if you watch both these, series or their movies, you realize that actually staying loyal to the scientific realities wouldn't necessarily make your games, your books boring if you know how to relay that information. And maybe as a last thing, maybe we can even talk about Interstellar, right? That movie is actually quite scientific, except the last part. Of course, I'm not talking about immortals in order to avoid giving spoilers, but except that last part, because we wouldn't know what happens during those events happen. But except that, everything is super scientifically correct, and that movie is amazing, right? I mean, that's kind of a design soul we are trying to catch while designing stuff about Angelic.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's far and away my favorite movie for sure. I don't think a movie will ever surpass that. Cool. So let's move a little bit over to like the artwork side and design. I'm curious, like the artwork is really neat, bright, really cool colors. Like, yeah, just talk a little bit about the inspiration behind the artwork and design. Yeah.
So narrative wise, Angelic, I mean, I'm not, we are talking about art, but of course the art design or the art style actually coming from the narrative, let's say, roots, because Angelic starts as a narrative, let's say, a story or lore. It has a lore, obviously. So first thing we did was we wanted understand the main pillars of the lore, and then of course, for example, the most major or dominant factor of the lore was it was a dark science fiction, right? Because as an example, to make it more clear, when we say a dark science fiction or dark fantasy, we mean that a story that has, I mean, in such stories there are no obvious white and black characters or story elements. Everything is kind of grayish. Nobody is purely evil or purely good. Actually, they are much more sophisticated, right? Again, as an example, Game of Thrones series. I mean, the series, or Song of Fire and Ice. These books are obviously dark fantasy books. Whereas, for example, Lord of the Rings, I mean, obviously these guys are good, these guys are bad, and that's simple as that. So that's why we call it as high fantasy. So Angelic is a dark science fiction game. So the first thing was we wanted to relate that dark without making it too overwhelming. Of course, dark. We wanted to relate this. That's why we wanted to go with some kind of realistic, almost realistic art style rather than a stylized art style actually. And apart from that, of course, we wanted to make it as cool as possible. When I say cool, of course, I'm not talking about mostly action focused stuff. I'm talking about, because it's a hero based game, right? So our heroes must look always cool. For example, time people get a bit angry to us because, for example, our female characters they are all super sexy, beautiful, but they are heroes. Like we wouldn't want to end up with ugly heroes, of course, because they wouldn't look like heroes. So while designing our characters, of course, there are cultural variations. Some of our characters are Asian, some of our characters are black, some of our characters are, for example, Caucasian. So we have all these variations. but they must look cool. And after all, because they are heroes. So apart from that, there are other important pillars that kind of affected our art style. So since it's a science fiction game, we wanted to follow a minimalist approach for a lot of stuff. For example, especially for example, our UI, we wanted to follow a minimalist approach, so the UI would look sleek, minimalistic, and cool. For example, scientific essence can be easily understood. And also, of course, there are other layers. I mean, it will take a lot of time, but to quickly wrap this up, we have different types of races, different types of cultures in the game. For example, if you look at neo-humans, they are actually quite different. I mean, they look like human as a form, but if you look closer, you're going to see some major differences. Basically, because they are utilizing silicon-based bodies, not organic carbon-based bodies, right? And also, since they represent the next step of human evolution, we wanted to utilize some kind of a super sleek look with their ships, with their technology, with their with their character designs. However, when we are talking about humans, of course, they have also high tech or something like that, but they must look different than neo-humans. And also they have cultural variations. They have also a lot of different layers. So not all humans are actually look like same. Unlike neo-humans, humans are they have a lot of variations. And also we have infested race. These guys are actually completely different. They have completely different arts, guidelines that we need to follow. Yes, I mean, so essentially there are a lot of layers, but all of them are being, kind of wrapped up by obeying our dark science fiction, essence in order to, make that everything consistent.
Yeah, very cool.
It's awesome, the overall just universe you're building, like and hearing all those details about neo-humans and more of the storyline and everything. Can you talk about single player and multiplayer like modes a little bit more?
Mm-hmm. So Angelic is quite different, when it comes if you compare it with other blockchain games. We have a lot of routes going to the traditional gaming space, and single player and multiplayer differences is also a good example, because single player is essentially a premium game. Let's say we don't care about blockchain games at all, but the main focus of the team is actually we want to onboard traditional players and we want them to see the beauty of this world, right? And I mean, everybody knows there's a lot of negativity surrounds blockchain gaming, especially in the Western world. And we wanted to fix this, right? I mean, is games like Angelic and other proper AAA games is our responsibility, in my opinion. So that's why we wanted to implement a single player mode, which would act as almost as a standalone premium game. So its main function and its main role is, of course, it's an epic campaign. There's a massive storyline. I mean, it's a very important product for us. It will be a very costly and long production, but still it's very important for the multiplayer part as well. So basically, single player is a bridge between traditional and blockchain gaming spaces, and its main function and or technical goal is onboarding players, traditional players. We're gonna let them in. We're gonna let them play a regular a regular premium game, so they will just enjoy a very epic campaign. They don't have to care about blockchain stuff. They can still play Angelic by just spending $30-$40 as if they are buying a regular premium game, and throughout their journey. But they will also start to realize Angelic is not just that game. For example, if they will need to travel, by the way, that particular space station which we call it as the Nexus. So Nexus is the space station. Basically, it's just a massive space station. You can go to that space station, while playing the single player mode. But when you are in that space station, you're gonna realize there are other players. That all of a sudden you're gonna realize Angelic is a massive universe, and then you will also realize even if you play and complete the campaign, there will be a lot of new stuff for you to do. So that's the first pink coming from the game to the traditional players that there are other stuff happening in that game, right? So again, single player game is just a campaign. Single player campaign it has two main purposes. First, onboarding traditional players and letting them enjoy a regular party-based, RPG / tactical combat game. But also, it's kind of slowly introduces some blockchain mechanics. For example, some of the player skins, some of the items, some of the cosmetic variations, some of the utility items, they will be NFTs. And if you are playing as a traditional player, you're going to start to realize that there are some stuff, NFTs, something is happening. You don't have to buy them, but still you slowly get used to these concepts. And maybe at some point for your favorite hero, for example, maybe you see an epic looking item. Maybe it's a perfect, cosmetic variation for that character. Maybe it's a skin. And maybe it's made by some of you guys. It can be made by our designers, or it can be made by the community, because we'll be giving a lot of tools to our community. So you're going to realize that super cool looking item is an NFT. And if you really care about your character and if you really love that item, maybe you bother creating a wallet, connecting the wallet to the game and then buying it. That's the first step to your transition, right? So single player is quite important for us tactically.
Yeah.
That's very important. So let's say you don't care about single player, or you finish single player and you want more Angelic experience. What you can do is you can simply join to the multiplayer part, and you also wanted to keep the consistency, right? Because single player and multiplayer must be almost identical, otherwise it will be super chaotic, super confusing. So what we are doing is they are essentially the same. They have the same gameplay, with some slight variations in the gameplay loops, but essentially they are the same. And also narrative-wise, they are also quite consistent. So basically, the events happening in the single-player mode, they are happening around the Sol system, our own solar system. But the events happening in the multiplayer mode, they are happening in a very distant parts in the same space. So they are happening in the same universe, in the same timeline, but they are super far away from each other. So that's why multiplayer stuff, events happening in the multiplayer, they don't directly have any kind of impact on the single player mode because of the distance. So it's also scientifically and narrative-wise consistent. So basically, when you join to the multiplayer from the single player mode, you will be actually representing your single player team, because in the single player you are a commander, you are Phoenix, a very important character in the game, and Phoenix actually gives you a command to go to the outer colonies and help them. So you are a neo-human. You need to create your own character, own avatar, own body, which is also narrative-wise super consistent, because neo-humans can utilize different bodies. They can create their own bodies. So you are actually some kind of a digital consciousness. You have a task. Now you need to create your first body, and then you go to the outer colonies and start helping the neo-human colonies. That's how your multiplayer journey begins. I know even in the beginning part of the multiplayer, you are not being pushed to spend additional money. We still approach it as a free-to-play game design. Up to a point, you can play the multiplayer mode. You just maybe spend a couple of hours. You see if the multiplayer mode is fun. You see if you want to spend additional money to that game. So we are super player friendly. We don't want to push them. We first want them to see and experience the beauty of Angelic. And only if they want to, and if they are if they feel confident to keep investing, on at that point, they start investing. They can join guilds. They can spend additional money. They can make additional investments, etc. So basically, that's the story. That's the differentiation between the two gameplay modes.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, curious about the multiplayer aspect. You just mentioned guilds there at the end. Can you elaborate on the guild system within the game? And I'm curious if there's going to be where an actual guild like PathDAO might be able to compete against other guilds, like that, or is the guild system just internal within the game?
No, definitely not. So we have two different concepts. The first concept is alliances. And also corporations. Alliances are neo-human alliances. It's a narrative concept. So in the game, there are neo-human alliances. They have significant impact on the game. They own some planets. They own some unique technologies. So how you treat them kind of impact your gameplay. Also there are corporations, they basically human, alliances or factions, and there are also guilds. But guilds are always player-based organizations, not coming from the game. Actually, they are not generic stuff. They are basically real player DAOs, actually, the real player guilds. So when a guild, enters into the game, the first thing they need to do is probably they would want to build their own star base, which would be their own home in the universe of Angelic, right? So that's why star bases are super important, because if you can complete your own star base, first thing, you would now own a dedicated place in Angelic universe. Second, you can start colonizing nearby planets. Even better, if you dominate a planet, you can start selling lands to other players. So you would be basically making a massive investment. And also your star base can be expanded. It can be used to make some additional technological advancements. For example, you can use it to hire more heroes. You can use it to onboard new players. It's basically your own universe inside the bigger universe of Angelic. That's simple as that. And also, we want to each guild is actually an independent DAO in the game. They will have their own management systems. I mean, they are free to rule their guild as they see fit. We will just supporting them with the tools. Each guild will have a representative in the development team directly. So we'll be continuously talking with those guilds, and as if they are, basically they will be telling us what they want to see, and we'll be developing it. That's simple. I mean, when people ask about our guild system, we are like, we don't know, because the guilds themselves will be deciding about the guild system. We will be just
Cool.
talking with you guys. You'll be telling us we want to have these kind of tools, these kind of mechanisms, and we'll be just. Of course, we need to also take care of the main consistency, gameplay, balance, etc. But apart from that, we will basically your help. You will be basically designing everything when it comes to the guilds. Actually, also of course there are tons of guild specific contents in the game, like guild battles, for example, events specific for guilds, NFT series specific for guilds. So we actually encourage our players to be social. We want them to join one of the guilds rather than trying to be a lone wolf, because narrative-wise it will be also very weird. You can't survive in that kind of a dark universe all by. Even in the single player mode, we encourage our players to have some allies. I mean, of course they will be generic characters, but even in the single player mode they have that kind of mindset. Otherwise they can't survive. So of course in the multiplayer mode, to keep it consistent with the lore, with the universe, of course we push our players. Again, we never force anybody to do anything, but we slightly encourage them to be a part of a bigger family rather than trying to survive all by themselves. So that's basically our vision here.
Great.
Is like in terms of like the earning potential for players, like will they earn like by buying and selling like the NFTs on a marketplace? Like can you tell us a little bit more just for the gamers that are listening?
So definitely, first thing, you apart from winning those NFTs, because you can also win NFTs by participating, some player versus player battles, tournaments, to be more exact. They can reward you with some NFTs as well. If you participate some bigger events, bigger community events, you can also gain some Angelverse tokens, our primary tokens, or directly some NFTs, for example, or you can buy them, of course, or better, you can create your own NFTs. So basically, in order to create your NFTs, you need to first get a blueprint from us. We are actually selling blueprints rather than making additional money for the company. Actually, we are selling blueprints to control the gameplay balance, because they will be NFTs, and once they're out, we cannot control them anymore. So we must be very careful initially to make everything balanced and fair. So blueprints are like your borders while designing a hero or creating an item. So the good thing is you can design your own heroes, right? That would be a very cool experience. And after you design the hero, you can of course level it up, he or she up, and then of course you can use it for yourself. You can rent it to your friends. You can sell it. Whatever you want to do, you can. Of course, you are free to do that. So there are tons of additional ways to make additional money. But also there are some countermeasures we are implementing in order to avoid this turning into a pay-to-win game, right? Because it's very important for us to sustain a fair gameplay experience. So when I say you can create or buy a hero or item, that does not mean you can buy the most strongest item or hero directly. It will be impossible. There are a lot of requirements. For example, your rank, overall rank is very important. If you just started the game, let's say you have deep pockets, but you just started the game, unfortunately, you still need to play a lot in order to get that point. You cannot just buy everything you see, right? It wouldn't be possible, or you would kill it will kill the long term gameplay, value actually. So there are a lot of requirements. You need to gather some resources. You need to gather, you need to be on the correct level, and also time to time you need to have proper relationship with alliances or corporations. That's one of the biggest difference. So even if you are, let's say we are all, at the same level, we have all the same resources, still we cannot make all the heroes all the same heroes, right? Because some of the heroes are mostly for some particular type of gameplay or game throughs. So throughout the game, if I helped neo-human alliances, let's say one particular neo-human alliance, I mostly help them. So I can, of course, make or buy or rent some stuff from them, but I cannot buy some heroes or some stuff, or I cannot craft those heroes who belongs to the opposite alliance, because they hate me, right? Because I kept helping their enemy, so they won't let me to rent, use, or utilize their technology. So that's how we will differentiate players, because Angelic is a very long-term project. I mean, it's essentially an MMO, right? So even 10 years later, there will be new content, new stuff for each player to enjoy. If you want to make that kind of a deep game, you must be very careful. Otherwise, after 2 years, after spending X amount of money, you would have everything, which wouldn't make sense to us. So that's how we have. That's why we are implementing these, let's say, precautions.
Yeah, and just to elaborate. Sorry, do you want to say something?
Yeah, well, I just love how the NFTs are like integrated so much into the game, and obviously it's such a long-term project. It's not like the NFTs are just tacked on as an afterthought. It's integrated really into the whole development, and yeah, I mean, you can see it in the world that you've created. It's a 10-year type project, and it's great to have that vision.
Yeah, and just to elaborate a little further on like the token system, I know you guys are setting up like a 2-token system with Angel and the N coin, and not to throw any shade, but kind of lately Axie and PegAxie maybe have had like a little trouble with their 2-token system and maintaining a healthy economy. I mean, this is just like a learning process for all of these play-to-earn games that are coming out, and like what have you learned, and maybe what are you going to maybe implement to keep that economy healthy?
Yeah, definitely. That's the hardest question, right? Because economy is a very difficult subject, and in the past I ran a lot of free to play MMO games, massive multiplayer online games. Of course, there are fundamental difference. I mean, in such games, scarcity is important. In those types of games, economy sit on different pillars definitely. But basically, no matter what you do, eventually your economy start to, let's say, corrupt. So the important thing is you must be always ready to fix it, right? You must be always observing. You must be always super fast and agile to fix the problems to keep the economy healthy. But I guess essentially our 2 tokens, for different purposes actually. So the Angelverse token, the primary token, of course, is a governance token as well. You can stake it, yield farm it, etc. And you'll be using it primarily to buy NFTs. And coin, the secondary coin, is an in-game currency, and it's basically for repairing items. It's basically for upgrading items, because we wouldn't want to, if there would be only one token, right? If its prices go too high, even repairing your items would be super expensive, which would kind of be problematic, right? So we wanted to. I mean, it's good to have a healthy valuation for your tokens, but if they start fluctuate right like hell, that would be a problem for everybody to even sustain their own NFTs, because their NFTs will be while for example you just suffer from a massive loss. You need to repair your star base. Now, because of those price fluctuations, even repairing is super expensive for you. We wouldn't want to make end up like that. So the secondary token is kind of a it's kind of a backup plan, so you can at least be able to save yourself from such unforeseeable negative impacts, because basically the secondary token will be mostly controlled by the DAO mechanism in the game, and the main DAO mechanism will be controlled by the players themselves. So actually we are giving a lot of governance to our players. So after some point, our players will be able to determine about if we need to make additional serve additional endcoins to the macro economy. If we need to burn them, then the DAO body will tell us to burn them. We start to burn them, etc. So at least that secondary token can be more easily manipulated by the players or by ourselves or together, in order to at least protect ourselves from such negative impacts, right? So basically the secondary token is for to protect ourselves from similar situations. Of course, I mean, the primary token will be also time to time it will be burned. So we also keep an eye on its valuations, etc. But again, I'm not saying we found the perfect formula or perfect solution. I'm not promising that. Please don't get me wrong. I'm sure there are a lot of problems. We need to, I mean, we need to make a lot of emergency steps in order to fix those similar problems. I totally respect X Infinity guys. Remember, they are the front runners, right? So they are experiencing everything as a first. Unfortunate guys, we are just observing them, learning from their failures, and they are super lucky. So yeah, I totally respect them.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, no shade there. It's just like, and it is great that new projects like you guys and all these other ones can learn from that and adapt, and like the whole gaming economy as a whole will benefit from all everybody learning from one another. So it's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love what you're doing with the NFTs also. Is there any sort of like NFT alpha you can drop for us that's not widely known about the NFTs?
Well, the most exciting NFTs for us is actually we have some founder series. They will be following maybe a month later to our public round. They will be essentially for support the development of the game, and they will have some surprising surprising rewards, right? I mean, of course I'm trying to not to give away the biggest surprise, but they might have some physical extensions. Who knows what kind of surprises we are cooking for you guys. So those founder NFTs will be super rare and super valuable. They have also emotional value as well, because you would be actually supporting your the project maybe you love, right? You'll be actually supporting it. Of course, they will have some utilities in the game. There might be additional utilities in the future. So it's very important. That founder says will be super important, and they will be super rare, super valuable. And apart from the founder says, the second most exciting stuff for me is the not directly the NFTs, but the tools we will be providing to our community, because rather than continuously giving them some items, some NFTs, some ships, etc., we want them to give some tools so they can unleash their creativity. And actually, our long-term vision is maybe, of course, it can't happen over a day, but maybe 2, 3, 5 years later, most of the contents will be coming from the community, not from us. So we'll be just supporting them. We'll be giving them tools. We'll be polishing and perfecting the tools. They will be expanding the universe. That's why we always say, I mean, just go to our website, and the first thing you're going to see is Angelic is a collaborative IP project, intellectual property project. So what we are trying to say is Angelic will be our universe, not just ours, but also yours. So you'll be also contributing, you'll be designing heroes, and maybe the biggest exciting feature is in that, of course, there will be the mechanism. You will be also have a lot of governance rights. You'll be voting. You will be even directing the development itself. If the body if they tell us to implement that hero instead of this hero, we'll be doing that. If they tell us to change the combat module for some reason, we'll be listening to them, of course. But even maybe more important thing is maybe some of you guys will design a hero and millions of people will love your hero and you will be a celebrity within maybe a short after that, right? Because we are just sustaining the and creating the universe, but since you are designing the heroes, the ships, etc., maybe some of people from our community, they will be a different kind of celebrity because they are creating super cool heroes and they have their own separate followers or fans because those guys are making really cool heroes. So it's also a massive ecosystem that can potentially make or provide massive opportunities for creators, for artists, for designers, not only for traders, etc. So actually, that's the biggest, most exciting part for me. Actually, that's why I'm so
that is.
excited about our tools. Yeah.
That is exciting. Yeah, it gives people kind of like that real world feel, like they're making a difference in the world that you're creating here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so like, obviously PathDAO is super excited, about the partnership here, and Angelic, the progress that you're making. And I'm sure there's gamers around the world watching Angelic. And sort of, I was curious, like how that, like what your roadmap is looking like, progress you're making on that front.
Yeah, actually, we have a playable demo already, which kind of puts us in a different position because let's say 95% of the blockchain games, they don't have anything playable right now. We have a playable demo. It was playable 6 months ago. It's still playable, of course, but we want to hold it a bit. We want to use it in a smart fashion. So we are not going to release it publicly. We just want to bundle it with some of our NFTs, and also it will be a prize to some of our followers. So we have a playable demo right now, but it doesn't have any blockchain features. So the next major focus would be actually the second major focus would be implementing blockchain mechanics to the game. The next major focus would be revamping the combat and also even pushing our limits a bit higher because right now we are migrating to Unreal Engine 5. Previously we have been using Unreal Engine 4.25. Now we are migrating to Unreal Engine 5, which is an automatic upgrade on every front actually. So we are actually kind of preparing Angelic for even a bigger journey by revamping the combat mechanism, by marketing to a better technology, by also improving our pipelines because again it's a very long journey, so we must have a consistent and steady speed because the biggest difference when it comes to Angelic's own technical pipeline is we are really good at breaking down that massive production into smaller chunks. And then we're going to take out that smaller chunk. We will just polish it, make it optimized, and deploy it to the public. So unlike other big scale projects, you won't have to wait for years to start playing Angelic. On the contrary, you will be receiving a lot of playable stuff from our side. So that's why we are spending a lot of time to perfect our pipelines. Because once the infrastructure is in the place, and once everything is super solid and smart, then we can quickly start pumping out new contents. We can quickly add new features. Then we can deploy it to you so you can play it, experience it. You can give your feedback back to us. We listen to you. We perfect our pipeline. So our roadmap is not actually fixed. I mean, there's a roadmap in our web page, but actually it's all, everything can change, right? We are super agile. We are not saying that we have a 2-year crystal clear plan. To be honest, nobody can have that, right? I mean, I have been working AAA titles for 20 years. Even the most experienced directors, we can all fail miserably. And even if you are a godlike, super experienced guy, outside factors can always, right, have massive impact on your schedules, right, on your pipelines. I mean, as an example, almost 2 weeks ago, we have been planning to make a big PR about our investors, partners. Then on that same exact day, the war began, right? So I'm talking about that kind of events. It can always happen, unfortunately. So yes, we have some kind of a placeholder roadmap. We are doing our best to follow it up. But if our community, if our partners, if the outside factors kind of force us to change it, of course we will change it, right? Because if that will be for the better, definitely we are ready to adapt. Yeah.
Yep, makes sense.
Yeah, you got to be flexible, you know. It's obviously like I just love the long-term vision that you have behind all this. So just I think before we let you go, like kind of final push, is there anything else that you want to share, like kind of like, you know, alpha, like with our community, obviously with the community at large about what's going on at Angelic?
I mean, of course, there are tons of stuff we can share, but we prefer to share them in a very organized fashion, both to keep the hype high, right, and also for marketing related purposes, and also to not to disappoint people, right, because there's a lot of expectations recently on Angelic. We keep saying that Angelic is a different project, it's a proper AAA, whatever, and then we must prove our words. We must show that we have been not bluffing or something. So that's why we are quite careful when we share new stuff, and whenever we share those new stuff, they'll be always super polished, and we are actually super careful on that front. But what I can promise is very soon, I mean literally very soon, we'll be making big announcements, and also quite after that big announcement, there'll be a massive, very important, very detailed trailer coming about the game, and even that trailer won't be showing the true potential of the game. So maybe a month later or so, we'll be releasing another trailer, and maybe a month later we'll be releasing a playable stuff. So the biggest difference is, we have some playable stuff as well. We have a lot of visual materials. So our players, our followers, they will be always quite frank, and they can always track track our pipelines, track our production. We are super frank, we are super transparent, and essentially people can always see what's happening on this site. And very soon, right after we launch the tokens and right after we launch our community tools, very soon they will be even kind of direct us and direct our development, because as I said, that's maybe we didn't emphasize it a lot enough. So basically, yes, we have a production pipeline, but again, our players will have a lot of governance rights. So after they play a new vertical slice coming from our side, they will be able to, let's say, direct us with their feedback, with their comments, and we are obliged to listen to them. I mean, it's not just a random suggestion. If they don't want us to do some specific stuff, we of course won't do that, right? So these kind of stuff are quite important for us, and we just made our promise to our community. We intend to keep it. So yes, unfortunately I cannot show you some stuff right now, but very soon we'll be showing a lot of new stuff, definitely.
Very cool, very exciting.
Yeah, we'll definitely be sharing it with our community once you guys release it.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
And really appreciate the partnership with PathDAO, and really appreciate you coming online and talking with us. So
yeah, Eric, it's so good talking to you, man. Yeah. Just hear the excitement in your voice.
Yeah, well, it's morning for us here in San Francisco. Good night for you in Turkey.
Yeah, have a great day, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks to everyone for listening. An honor to have Angelic on tonight, and we'll keep you guys updated on all the progress. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
2507. Earth was dominated by giant corporations. Angelicon, a marginal company, initiated a project codenamed Transcendence. It promised infinite life and an escape from the now-dying Earth. Once the project was completed, Angelicon quickly became a global force reckoned with. Not for long, though. They lost the control over their neo-humans. Now called the Fallen Angels, neo-humans rebelled and won a spectacular victory. Mysteriously, they did not deliver the final blow and retreated. Iset, the leader of the Angels, dedicated herself to engineering new angels. It is still an enigma why she chose to spare the corporations. After the war, the Transcendence Project had been banned. Humanity's progress did not stop, of course. The show must go on after all. In 2702, deep space operations of the corporations had stalled due to a newly risen danger. The Infested. They have discovered that this organism has destroyed many alien civilizations. When corporations began colonizing exoplanets, millions of desperate people saw this as an opportunity and settled in. Alas, the infestation hit these brave frontiers hard. You were a top-tier military pilot before the infestation decimated your home station. Now you are scavenging with your friends. One day, your ship captured a peculiar signal. Analysis revealed an astonished discovery. It was a neo-human beacon. You hit big this time.